Welcome to Move Like This, brought to you by the Accounting Move Project and sponsored by Moss Adams and Sapro. On this podcast, we share ideas and hear from guests about how they find, retain, develop, and advance women and other underrepresented groups in their accounting firms. Now, on to our guest. Hello, and welcome to this episode of Move Like This. I am very much looking forward to having a conversation with Jessica McClain. She is the Girl Scouts National Captain, and I recently heard her speak at the Accounting and Financial Women's Alliance conference. So, first of all, thank you for being here today, Jessica.
Bonnie, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here and I'm ready for our conversation.
Awesome. Well, at the Women Who Count conference, you spoke on the power of authenticity and courageous communication, which are words that I absolutely love. And I thoroughly enjoyed your presentation and pretty much immediately invited you to join me on this podcast. So I'm glad we could make this happen. But before we dive into today's topic, tell us a little bit about what you do in your day-to-day job as the CFO for Girl Scouts Nation's Capital.
Absolutely. So again, thank you for the invitation. You immediately connected with me and I'm like, absolutely, Bonnie, I'm coming. I'm there. You don't have to worry about that one. Wow. I have the pleasure and, the privilege of serving as the CFO for Girl Scouts Nation's Capital. And I just reached my 3-year anniversary with the council. And I love the work that I do. I tell people I operate at the intersection of accounting and social impact. So I have a huge passion for the accounting profession, but get to do it in a line of work where I get to have a positive impact on people's lives. And I absolutely love it. So for my day-to-day work, no day ever looks the same. Wow. But it keeps it fun. It keeps it interesting. I work very closely with our CEO, our board, and our senior leadership team. And part of it is making sure our financial goals align with our mission. And our mission is building girls of courage, confidence, and character. And with that, I oversee our iconic cookie program for our council. It's amazing. It's the world's largest girl-led entrepreneurship program in the world. Absolutely phenomenal. Our council has several amazing camp properties that I help with overseeing, maintaining those. Retail operations. We actually have brick and mortar stores. We have an online presence as well, so you can get your Girl Scout uniform, your Girl Scout gear, and show the world your Girl Scout pride. Of course, finance, and as well as our business operation, our office space, and things of that nature. And some projects I'm focusing on now, a lot of CFOs are dealing with, is integrating AI into their organization. And I say we're going to do it ethically and responsibly. It's how I like to put it. But also enhancing our administrative processes to ensure we are efficient and effective in serving our members.
Wow, you have a lot of balls that you're juggling there.
For my best.
Yeah. And that's awesome. I did not know that there were brick and mortar stores. That's fascinating.
They do.
So on this show, we talk frequently about the importance of feeling that you belong in the workplace. And those that do feel this are often have a hard time understanding why others don't, right? I mean, if you're not personally experiencing something, it's kind of hard to understand what somebody else is experiencing. But statistically, an average of 64% of people are currently hiding some aspect of their identity from their employer. And I'm thinking of a specific conversation I had with an accountant who was afraid to put photos of his family on his desk at work because he was married to a man. And quite a few of his coworkers felt perfectly comfortable saying homophobic things in the workplace. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on what and why people are hiding their true selves at work.
Wow. In preparing to speak at the conference, it was both heartbreaking. It was disheartening in doing the research and the reading and to learn that so many individuals, even like the person you just gave in the question, they still feel compelled. They still feel as though they have to conceal certain aspects of their identity in the workplace. I mean, it's such a large number and the reasons are complex. You gave one of them, but for some people, it's the fear of potential judgment. the fear of being excluded, discrimination, adverse career, repercussions. There are various reasons why, and why they do it. Again, it could be concerns about their racial or ethnic biases that may be in the workplace, or because of a mental or physical ability. Um, Uncertainty regarding how acceptance of gender identities or sexual orientation, or even apprehensions about family dynamics, their family responsibilities at home, or fears relating to their political views. I shared at the conference. A colleague I knew years ago was afraid to share with colleagues that she had to take on additional responsibilities at home to help care for her nephew. Her sibling at the time was having some personal struggles and needed to take on, again, helping raise her nephew. She was afraid to share it because she thought her colleagues would take that information, share it with their supervisor, that maybe she has too much going on at home, and therefore this could impact or hinder a potential promotion. I think it was a big project that was coming up. I mean, that tells me something right there. And when people have these fears, it usually comes from a lack of trust within an organization. And so these fears are definitely not unfounded.
Mhm.
Many of us have probably experienced firsthand ourselves, or they've even witnessed, like we just shared, the consequences of being open about identities or things going on in their lives in a professional setting. Um, I'll also add, when you have what I call a culture of concealment, when people are going to just hide it, not bring it to work, not be able to share, you have people that are then grappling with these internal struggles, excuse me. They want to be authentic, but at the same time, they got to protect themselves and their careers and their personal well-being. So it is an internal struggle. It's an internal fight. That burden, and I shared this in the presentation, I mean, that leads to increased stress. It leads to anxiety, which we think about, that ultimately impacts a person's happiness and their workplace experience. And
Mhm.
usually what happens from there, more than likely people leave. And so, I mean, the impact it has on individuals, the impact it then has on an organization are larger, and they're profound. Um, and so if people want to address these, and we're going to talk about this later, is we have to create inclusive environments, environments where there's a level of trust, and that courageous communication and transparent communication is so important in that as well.
Yeah, I agree. And your point is well taken in that whether it's something that the person is perceiving to be an issue or a real issue really doesn't matter, in
Absolutely.
that we're talking about people's livelihoods here. This is not something small, you know? So
Mhm.
if I'm going to err on one side or the other, I'm going to err on the side that protects my job and protects my family and my income and all of that. So I understand why people make a lot of the decisions they make. It's just in a way sad that they have to.
Yes, it
Because
is.
like you say, trying to keep part of yourself hidden is stressful. And the energy used to perform a
Mhm.
certain way is energy that is not being used in your job performance. So
Yes.
I know we kind of touched on this, but I'd like to dig a little bit deeper in the impact not being authentic has on job performance and ultimately on the success of an accounting firm or whatever company that you're working for.
Oh, absolutely. We touched on it, but I agree. We're going to dive a bit deeper into it. When people feel they cannot express them true selves at work, or hide or even alter who they are, we even talk about that piece, altering who they are. The amount of mental energy that it takes to do that is high. And you've already shared it. You're diverting that energy from trying to manage this alter persona, this concealment. That's energy that's not used to, again, for your engagement and productivity at work. I
Mhm.
mean, this, I would call a preoccupation with impressions. I mean, you're trying to make sure you're making the right impression. I mean, it really hinders your ability to perform at your best. I mean, just period. When you do that, and when that happens, overall productivity is going to decline.
Mhm.
Creativity is going to be stifled because people aren't going to want to bring their viewpoints, their perspectives, or their experiences to work. Then that hinders collaboration among employees because, again, if I don't feel as though I can trust you or there's a relationship there because I'm hiding or altering myself, collaboration goes out the window. But on the person themselves, the mental and even the physical, because there is a physical stress that comes with this as well. We definitely cannot ignore it. I mean, I've shared before when I've been in meetings and I could feel myself kind of just hunching in.
Mhm.
because people do it because they feel like they're trying to hide. Can people really see who I am? Do they see a different person? I know who I am, but I'm hiding it from this person. There's a physical stress that comes along with that as well, and so again, that leads to a poor job performance. That is a lack of engagement, and ultimately, most people usually leave the firm or the organization that they're with.
Yeah, I think it's just a self-protective mode to leave,
Yes.
you know? Because I mean, I feel in some ways fortunate that I've not had to do that too much. Now, I've had my own company since 2009, so that is definitely, I'm not hiding myself from anybody but the dogs. But yeah, it has a huge impact. And but let's talk a little bit now about solutions. Other than finding another job, what can individuals do to embody authenticity? And then what are indicators that it's time to just look for another firm to work for?
Yes. So we hope, again, it's usually what happens is people leave. But I start with telling people it starts with self awareness. It
Mhm.
starts with you understanding your values, your strengths, your experiences, areas for growth. And so that way, that helps you approach work with a level of confidence and integrity in doing that. I shared at the conference as well, when we share personal experiences with others where appropriate, that storytelling, it really builds connection.
Yeah.
It fosters understanding. And again, it helps build that trust because when we're able to genuinely communicate and actually demonstrate a level of vulnerability, you're opening floodgates there. I tell people that you're having more dialogue, especially when you're doing this with intention.
Mm.
I've also shared getting feedback from trusted colleagues, understanding how people see you. You may be able to refine how you're showing up authentically, again, while maintaining professionalism because we are in a workplace. In your support systems, I mean, those are so important. I mean, those support systems, whether they're at work, they could be formal, they could be informal, or allies. I mean, those people are going to help give you encouragement. They're going to give you guidance, and they're also going to give you shared experiences as well. So there's many ways to start as an individual to help with this journey of what I call authenticity.
Yeah.
Now, yes, if you're in a toxic workplace, I would not say to stay there. Wouldn't recommend that. But there's some signs or things that you should consider when deciding, I don't know if this is a place for me where I feel that trust is there for me to show up as who I am at work. And part of what we mentioned earlier was emotional exhaustion.
Mm.
It is draining to alter or hide or conceal a part of who you are. So if you're starting to feel this exhaustion, of keeping it in or hiding, that's one thing to be aware of. Um, if you're starting to be left out of important conversations or processes, you start to feel this bit of exclusion. That's something to keep an eye on as well. Um, Another, I would see if your organization is not making an effort for people to show up at work as who they are, to have that culture of inclusion, a culture of care, as I like to also say as well. If you're not seeing it from your leadership, that may be a sign as well. And if you have witnessed or been a victim of just a toxic culture, I mean, negative behavior, bullying, discrimination, I mean, all of these are telltale signs. It is time to move on.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I guess for better or worse, in the accounting profession right now, there's so many jobs out there that,
Hmm.
back in the day, you may have had to stick around longer than you do now.
Yeah.
If you're, I mean, especially like you said, if there's outright discrimination or bullying behavior or things like that, I mean, we teach our kids not to do
Hmm.
that, not to put up with that, and then we have to kind of look at ourselves and see if we're living that truth as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, we kind of talked a little bit about the individual, but as you know, Move is all about helping firms
Mhm.
attract, retain, and promote women. And so, what can firm leaders do to create a culture where people of all stripes feel like they can belong? What steps can they take today? And, or kind of what processes and systems can they put in place for the long term?
Absolutely. It starts with intentional action amongst leadership. And the last question, if you're at a staff level within the organization and your leadership is not modeling the appropriate behavior, that may mean that's not a place for you to be. So it's going to start with intentional action at a leadership level. If you're wanting to have, again, that inclusive environment where everyone feels like they belong. And so there are some immediate things that organizations and firms can do, and also things in the long term as well. Inclusive hiring practices. I mean, it sounds simple or maybe sound cliche. I mean, but reviewing job descriptions, understanding your recruitment process of where and how you're doing recruiting when it comes to your talent pools. Um, Anti-discrimination policies, ensuring that your employees are getting the appropriate training, have a clear understanding, again, of the policies that are in place when it comes to any form of harassment or discrimination. Providing room for those with ERGs, those employee resource groups, or those affinity groups as well, and not from an exclusion standpoint, but just allowing people to be together. And even allies may be together as well, where they can build a community where they can have a level of advocacy in the workplace. So those are some of the things that they can do in the short term. But the biggest one for me is that modeling of behavior.
Mm.
I can't stand those in leadership that say one thing and do something else. When you are able to demonstrate authenticity, when you're able to demonstrate your level of vulnerability through your actions and communications, it allows others to do the same. Because when you don't do it, how can I feel comfortable that I can do the same thing?
Mhm.
So being an example, being a role model is important. And then calling people out when they see it, holding people accountable when they see that negative or toxic behavior is so important. In the immediate term, those are several things that organizations can do.
Yeah.
Long term, those mentorship and sponsorship programs are as well. Again, it gives your talent pool the ability to get that guidance, to get the opportunities for growth and development. It is important. And that training. And when we talk about training, it's not just sitting in a class. It truly is the soft skill training, or people say human training or people skills, whatever you want to call it, where they are able to practice the courageous communication, the ability to learn how to navigate difficult conversations, and what it means to build trust and work along people that may be different from you. But lastly, I guess you can call it back in the short term, is you have to have an environment that is non punitive, that when employees are able to speak up, they feel safe that they can do that without some concern of retaliation. So you can't say one thing, but then and say, oh, we want our employees to speak up. We want them to have a voice. But when they say something, there's retaliation. That doesn't work.
Mhm.
They have to trust. Employees have to trust that their voice matters. They have to. If they don't feel that trust is there, and I'm going to keep saying trust is the foundation of all of this, the foundation isn't there. So when they trust that their voice matters, when they trust they won't be retaliated against, when they do speak up on something that they've experienced or witnessed themselves, that allows them to have those conversations, but at the same time allow themselves and others to show up authentically in the workplace. So there's many strategies out there that firms and organizations can put in place to help them along this journey, as I continue to say, of authenticity and courageous communication.
Yeah, I loved all those points, but I think a lot of times firms don't realize that, or the leadership in firms don't
Mm.
necessarily realize that some of these issues exist.
Mm.
And I do some diversity, equity, inclusion training and some work with firms. And what I have found is one of the most powerful things to do is to survey your people, but have somebody from outside of the firm manage
Mm.
it, conduct it, and analyze it. Because that way, people can say things in a way where they feel safe
Yeah.
because, it's not going to get back to their supervisor or whoever it is that may be creating issues. Also, what happens frequently is you have leadership is kind of shocked
Mm.
what those things uncover. I mean, I've done a number of these, and
Mm.
every single time I've had, somebody in the partner group or leaders within the company that are like, "Oh my gosh, I had no idea and this is going on." And then they're always like, "Can you tell me who said this?" And it's always like, "No, part of our agreement is I will give you the information, but I'm protecting your people." But yeah, but while it's often something that's hard to hear, until you know what the problem is, you can't do anything to solve it. And I
Yeah.
think that's powerful. And you can't build that trust. Now, on the flip side of that, I will also say, and this kind of backs up something you just said, is to develop that trust. You want people to come to you when there's an issue and be able to
Hmm.
share that safely, but you also have to do something with that information.
Yes.
Yes, because and like the surveys and other things like that too, you can gather all the information in the world, but if you're asking somebody to be vulnerable and put themselves at risk potentially by saying something and you don't do anything with that, to me, that's more harmful than if they had never come to you in the first place.
Oh, I love that you said that. It becomes window dressing. Oh, I'm coming to tell you something, but there's no follow through. There's no action behind it. And so, because I said, employees have to feel that their voices matter. And that's an example. If I'm sharing something, and I know at times there's an HR perspective from things, and there's things that we can't always share, but there needs to be some kind of feedback loop to help that employee to understand we're addressing this. We're taking accountability with it. We hear you. Your voice is important and it matters, and we're working to address it. But if not, you're just talking into thin air.
Yeah.
And at that point, I don't feel like my voice matters if that's how it's going to be.
Yeah. And then that might be one of your red flags that it's time to go somewhere else.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Well, I could sit here and talk all day on this topic because it's something obviously we're both pretty passionate about. But I also want to respect your time. But I do want to end with a few kind of just fun getting to know Jessica questions here at the end. So, first of all, when you were 5 years old or around that age, what did you want to be when you grew up?
So I have a funny story. I'm not sure if it was five, but I did know from an early age I wanted to be an accountant. I tell people that I had she was an aftercare teacher, a substitute teacher. She had a lot of money in her pocket. So of course I'm intrigued. Like, what do you do to have so much money? And she said, I'm a tax accountant. All right, I'm sold. I'm sold. That's it. I'm sold. It's all I needed to know. And it's interesting to be here now and say, I'm not a tax accountant. I don't do the taxes. I leave that to my tax friends. But here I am. And
Yeah,
just that innocent exposure to the profession early on, what it did. So yes, I guess I knew from an early age I was going to be an accountant. It was
that
destined for me.
funny. I love that. You're like, okay, I would like a lot of money in my pocket too.
Yes.
Wouldn't we all? Well, if you were given the chance to travel anywhere, you don't have to worry about time off or responsibilities or money or anything. Where would you go and why?
One of the things on my bucket list is South Africa.
Mm.
I know people when they go for a good 2 weeks at a time. That country has such a rich history. The landscapes, oh my goodness, they have beaches, the wildlife. I mean, it is just amazing of what you can see. That would be an incredible experience for me. I want to learn more about the culture, and just have that experience. So it's already on my bucket list. It's been there, but definitely would go.
Africa's on mine as well, though. My best friend here in Atlanta served in the Peace Corps in Tanzania.
Wow.
And she keeps talking about for a major birthday going back. And I'm like, I really want to be on that trip. Because,
And you got to go, Bonnie, you got to go.
yes, she wants to climb Mount Kelly. And I'm like, yeah, my knees aren't going to let me do that. But I will be at the base cheering you as you leave. And I'll be there like with all kinds of celebration when you get back. Um,
Awesome.
and then finally, if you could have one superpower, what would it be?
So I love to travel. So again, South Africa is one place of the many places on my bucket list. I would say teleportation. I want to be able to just instantly travel somewhere, anywhere in the world, anytime I want, where I can go experience new cultures, new food, and just really broaden my perspective. And I have to sit on a 15 or 20-hour flight to do it. Just show up there, have the experience, and get back. That's what I would love to do.
Yes,
That's
it's
mine.
funny. I recently interviewed Amy Yip, who was also a speaker at the Women Who Count conference. And she said the same thing. She wanted to be able to snap her fingers, be somewhere else, and then snap them again and be able to be home and sleep in her own bed. And I'm like, I am so in on that superpower because,
Yes. I would also use it to get me back and forth from work to home. I live in the DC area, so I deal with the nightmare of DC traffic. You're in Atlanta, so you get it to teleport to work and teleport right back and not spend all that time in traffic. So I would use it for that as well.
That sounds brilliant.
Yeah.
We
Oh.
need to work on figuring out how to make that happen. Well, Jessica, I just thoroughly enjoyed our conversation, and look forward to others in the future. And thank you so much for being here and sharing your wisdom and experience, today on Move Like This.
Well, thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for all that you're doing when it comes to DEIB within the profession. I'm here cheering you on and here to support you as well. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to Move Like This, brought to you by the Accounting Move Project and sponsored by Moss Adams and Sapro. If you'd like to learn more, visit our website at accountingmoveproject.com. Don't forget to subscribe and share with your friends and colleagues too. I'm your host, Bonnie Buell Russick, and until next time, keep moving forward.